Go.
Hello again, everybody. We are very pleased to have our second session, second podcast today. We are joined by our third partner, Bala, and we're going to have some fun conversations today. So, one question after yesterday that a lot of you asked us was around RPA and how is RPA and the RPA's journey towards agentic being different from what agentic journeys are in together? How are these RPA tools and bots coming into picture? Where do they fit into the entire scheme of things? How should companies invest in these kind of tools? Where is the entire momentum going? Should companies focus on a particular tool set? Should companies focus on technology and not look into the tool set? What is the future of RPA? All of that is something that we want to talk about today. With that in mind, Bala, again, so nice to have you. You are our third partner in this crime. And I wanted to understand from you, what are you seeing in terms of RPA? What are you seeing in terms of, the movement of RPA versus wholly agentic platforms that the big companies are rolling out versus what organizations want, right? Like, do they want to start small? Do they want to, invest on a particular technology? Should they look into both the things together? What's your view?
Awesome topic, Nayan. Thank you, Nayan, and thank you, Navneet. Good to be here today. So this is a very hot topic. RPA is been in the industry for such a long time, right? It's all about like how we automate our task. So far, the computers have been deterministic. So we as a human race have created that deterministic process, so we can actually constantly repeat it and we can automate it, right? Um, but with the agentic AI, it kind of changes the game because the models are pretty, they're not deterministic. They they don't repeat the same thing, but they're very good at understanding what needs to be done and then strategize and take action on it. And that's the world that I see a lot. And in 2026, you're going to see a crazy number of agentic AI type tools that are going to come. And ultimately, these tools are going to be used for some business process to achieve something, right? RPA was that. Eventually, like if you take invoice processing, or if you're going to go update an order in SAP, or if you wanted to create a record in Salesforce to as a follow-up call, anything that you're doing a business processes, right? So there used to be RPA and there used to be IPA. IPA used to use little bit AI wherever it is possible. But agentic AI seems like a lot of people are saying like, okay, now this can actually revamp everything, which means you can't take like Blue Prism or UiPath or traditional RPA and try to fit this. Rather, you have to reimagine from scratch. Like you take say for example, do an expense processing. Everybody does it, right? You do it, I do it. We all have expense to process in Office. You can take a picture and then you can OCR it and then have a model understand what it is ability to go send it to SAP or whatever the ERP tool or the accounting tool that you have and just update it, right? This entire thing can be reimagined through agentic AI. And the advantage in agentic AI is like if the invoice format changes a little bit, and if it is something like if the date goes from right to the left or left to the right or like a two line below or two line up, those nuances in a traditional systems are very hard. You have to redo the RPA and you have to make sure that those changes are accommodated because it's deterministic. Here, the model can understand that and it can adjust it so that the agent will know that, okay, these are the models changes. I mean, these are the changes in the invoice and the model was able to guide us and let's go execute on it, right? And this is coming this year. I mean, I've seen, I don't know, you guys saw the latest open claw, the Modbot. It's fantastic. Like you can tell like, hey, go find a flight and book the flight, and it does go looks at it, and then it goes and really books a flight for you. So it does the the agentic AI is coming so far on the consumer side, and eventually that will take take more and more play into the industrial and the business aspect as well. So that's what I see. Now, in terms of tools, um, it's not easy to say, okay, we have this X tool, go get it and do it. It's not going to exist for the next couple of years because some tools are still evolving. Some tools are in the very beginning stages, right? So you have to do a combination of it. I've seen some vendors only selling certain process. Like some vendors will come and say like, oh, you can just buy this for HR onboarding, right? A new employee comes in, very constant fixed flow, but with some changes to it, you adjust to the company and you can just go and do it. Now you can argue and say like, hey, if I buy that platform, can I use it for others? Yes, you can, but then that becomes your build again in that platform, right? So and then you have to worry about, I mean, I don't think vendor lock-in should be a concept, to be honest. You should be able to use whichever tool is the best. Doesn't matter which vendor it is. But these tools will always be you buy and you have to customize something. Uh, I've never seen a single organization telling me that, oh, we bought this tool and that's it. We configured it and it's all very good to go, right? It never
Yeah.
happens. The amount of There's also an aspect of like we were talking about this couple of days ago with another customer. Um, the debate was like, oh, development is so hard. It'll take so time. So customization is that a good thing in this world? If you look at it, because of the tech debt, if humans are doing, there is always a tech debt. Because if I'm going sitting and doing for a company X and then I leave, then I take the knowledge with me, right? That always is a problem. But if you can have models build it and the models are able to create code super fast, is that even a question that we have to worry about? Because if I want a CRM, I can hand it over to GitHub Copilot or Cloud Code and ask them to, or Cursor or all these tools and say like, okay, create me a CRM in XYZ. 2 days later, it is ready for me. And
Yeah.
if something breaks, I can ask the model to fix it. So I don't need kind of the expertise. I mean, to say like, okay, no, 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 we need X number of people and hire them, skill them, and then maintain them. All those fear goes away. So it makes it easier also. But then the question comes is like, what do the software engineers do and things like that? So it's good and bad, but in tools wise, I think you can pick a tool, but it also going to be most of it is going to be like built at this point of time.
Yeah, I think this is a very good observation, Bala. And you touched a lot. You probably touched everything. So some of the questions coming in my mind is how do you or we see collectively that, as you said, like there is a human aspect or tech engineering aspect, like what the engineers should do, what they should do so that they are basically ready for the future, where the whole engineering aspect, software development aspect is fundamentally changing, right? So there was a time when there was a lot of software we were building and the whole name and fame of those software were like they are basically, you can easily configure it because you don't have to do a lot of coding. Now the coding aspect was considered difficult to maintain. Now the coding aspect, if the agents are doing, that difficulty level has gone from 10 to 0, almost 0. That means there's a huge amount of softwares which was built earlier, be the Salesforce or any of those tools, right? Which the biggest selling point of that was that it's easy to really just simply configure, but obviously with the limitations, right? Versus doing something custom build where you can do anything and everything, but there's a heavy cost of building. So that has gone, I guess, with the agents, right? Same way when we talk about the RPAs, all these RPAs, business process automation tools, Blue Prism or any of those things, right? Pega and everything, they exist as for a purpose. And what I see today is like all those tools are also trying to adopt the agentic nature of it, but fundamentally they
Right.
are RPA tool. And there's another side which is basically saying ignore that part, start with agents and reimagine your business process. You do not have to start with a deterministic and try to do something which agent can fit in there, right? there's a lot of marketing also. There's a lot of confusion in the people's mind when you talk about the top leadership organizations as well as the engineers. Where should they look at? As you rightly pointed, that
Yeah. So
some of the organizations comes with say, okay, here is a very specific tool. It can do your invoice processing. And again, in the organization, there's hundreds of business processes. Should you really
yes.
think about each of them as a separate? I mean, it might be quick turnaround in the beginning, but
Yes.
overall, is it something which you should really think about it, or do you think about either start with the RPA tool and gradually go to the agentic,
Yeah.
or start with the agentic
Yeah.
first, reimagine your business because the whole thing is changing at
Yeah.
such a super fast, supersonic speed that no more the traditional concerns are valid.
I mean, I think there are multiple ways of skinning the cat. I can give you a point of view, and Bala, I'd like to know your point of view too. I think, again, if I'm an organization, right, for me, the end goal is not whether, and again, I'm trying to answer this question from, let's say, two dimensions, right? First dimension is inside out, right? I'm an organization. My intention is not to be agentic organization or RPA organization. My intention is how can I make the decisions faster? How can I solve the business processes faster, right? So inside out view would be, I don't care what technology and tools really will make me do it better as long as I can do it better, right? So again, not going into your technical debt questions, but I'm saying like from an inside out view, this becomes a fundamental question, in my opinion, around crawl, walk, run that you talked about yesterday.
Yeah.
So a lot of companies, they would not invest a lot of time and effort and money in saying, let's reimagine a platform where we can build everything, which is also a good thing to do, right? I mean, they will probably look into the tools that can solve their very specific tactical problem, right?
Yeah.
And it is not a bad thing, right? And again, what these tools that you talked about, the UiPath and Power Automate and Blue Prism, they are doing is they're also blurring the line, right? I mean, now you cannot say whether UiPath or Blue Prism is an out and out RPA tool or they are an agentic tool because they are marketing themselves as an agentic tool now,
Yes.
right?
Yeah. And in fact, there are tools which is coming from ground up,
Yeah.
picking the agents as a core, like Solar and all those ones, right? And basically trying to market them that, okay, we are giving you a platform where
Yeah.
you can reimagine your business ground up rather than going and doing the development with maybe like a LangChain, LangGraph,
Yeah.
those kind of thing. So I think the question which I have in mind, like, okay, there's not one solution fit
No,
all. It's
no.
also about the size of the organization, where the
Yeah.
organization is in the journey of, like, if an organization with hundreds and thousands of user
Correct.
base,
Correct.
it's much slower pace for them to adopt.
Yeah.
At the same time, a smaller organization
Very
will,
true.
will be much easier for them to change and adopt.
But smaller organization will also have stricter budgets.
That's also true.
Yeah. So again,
I
so
think
that was
it's
yeah. So again, going back, right? I mean, it was an inside out, but the outside in view, Bala, to your point, I really like what you said was when you start, you know, enabling certain use cases on certain tools, right? Let's say some of the RPA tools, it's very easy to go down a slippery slope, right? I mean, it's very easy to go down a path and build a lot of technical debt, right? Because when you have a nail, the whole world looks like a hammer, right? Like you just want to solve everything. And once you start doing that, then your RPA tool becomes the center of the universe for your organization.
Yeah.
And then it becomes a huge problem because you are trying to retrofit all kinds of use cases using a tool rather than thinking about a platform centric view, right? So I think it is okay, in my opinion, right? I mean, again, like to understand your views. It is okay to start with a very tactical mindset because, again, cost, people, money, and also outcome is important. Because, again, it's not a question of how agentic is my tool. The question is, can the tool do my work? But also keep a strategic outlook in mind saying, it is fine to solve this problem with this particular tool, but I should not just stop here. I should think about the whole strategy. What is going to be my Gen AI platform? Can my Gen AI platform solve all kinds of use cases that are going to come up in next 2 years, right? Because your Gen AI use cases, and again, we have seen this journey. 2 years ago, it was all chatbots and knowledge synthesis, right? Now we are talking about building agentic solutions, and the agents are connecting to multiple systems. You talked about Salesforce, ServiceNow, Workday, what have you, right?
Yeah.
In 1 year's time, we're going to start connecting to even more complex systems, right? Which means do not strategically do not think about your GenAI tool set as one single tool that will solve your problem. You have to think from a platform point of view. So if you are
Right.
doing
So
these things together, then
yeah,
I think you are safe as an organization.
yeah.
What do you think?
So that's a good way of starting point, but where the the problem comes is the existing tech debt. I mean, I refer to tech debt in terms of not the skilled person or the people or the humans who are working, more of the softwares that we use, right? What we don't realize is all the RPA tool, what it does, it's going and mimicking a human behavior inside an old piece of code that only can run in a desktop, right? Or it's opening a browser and it is doing what the user is doing. Click, 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 fill this, click, click. So if you look at it in that sense, it's basically what these RPA, usually the majority of the ones, not the modern ones. The modern ones are API based. Those are pretty good. At least most of it that I see are all clunky like clunks like this, which basically the challenge with enterprises are like how hold of a software these guys have, and that causes the biggest problem. Now, that problem can be solved in two ways. You can either take and say like, okay, I have this 2,000 softwares, and each individual like uses like 20 of them for every single business process. Do I make it use like traditional RPA and do the work, or get these new ones that's what they're going after, computer use, right? Like the most of these RPA are going towards like custom vision and computer use that can recognize a screen, and it can say like, okay, here is what I need to fill, here is what I need to select based on what task they have to do. Um, that's the way that traditional is going to go. But in terms of like building with AI, using AI, it is better to look at the process and say like, is that process good and do we need it, right? We have built a lot of integration layers over the years. Why did you think we built the integration layers? Because of these pieces of software are not each talking to each other, right? Um, Now the question becomes is like that became intermediary steps, and that causes the problem with every enterprises that I see, like even a small or big, like the majority of it is like sitting that integration layer and they're trying to move between each other. Um, can you minimize that is the question that I always go after. Um, and if we can minimize that, then it becomes the best possible scenarios on both sides. But do it's not that easy because the traditional softwares are some of them are Windows based, some of them are Linux based, and some of them are sitting in like very confined hardware and stuff like that. Web based, mobile based. We are even not talking about mobile. They haven't figured out how to mimic the mobile based RPAs. So those all you have to look at it, right? But that's the entire enterprise. Can we go do for everything? And that's going to be overkill. Start something small, take some smaller chunks of use cases. Try to use that. Train yourself that you do not get a deterministic answer. It's okay not to get a deterministic answer as far as the outcome is good enough. Have some fail-safe mechanism saying like, okay, if it fails, push that to a human instead of the AI processing, like have some checks and balances at that point and start small and grow, right? That's where most of the tools are going to be built because I mean, I don't know how many real world examples that I've seen that someone has taken an agentic tool and said like, okay, this is good, right? Um,
True, very true. So again, we'll wrap it up with last question to Navneet. So again, how will organizations need to think about their strategy? Like with RPAs, which is low hanging fruit, right? I mean, easy to buy a tool and build certain solution versus the platform like you're talking about, right? Like custom platform where there's endless possibilities. You can probably build everything. You might not need everything for this use case number one, but you might need it for future use cases,
Yeah.
right? So how should organizations think about adoption and growth and expansion?
Yeah, no, that's the fundamental question, right? So there's not a single answer for any of these things. The reality is it depends on multiple factors. One is like how big the organization is, what the maturity level of that organization is, how difficult to introduce a change in that organization is. So technology is only one aspect. There's a human side of it. And the way things are evolving, as we were discussing yesterday also, the best success we have seen it when the business is in the driver's seat along with the technology people.
Sure.
And that can only happen when they can see this early success. So as Bala was saying, like it start small, have like it's okay to have not 100%, right? Because it's a not a deterministic process.
True.
The software has to be think differently. That it has to be think like okay, human being with infinite capacity and capabilities, but at the same time, also the limitation of human being is like it can also make mistakes. It is
True.
not going to be 100% accurate and consistent all the time. So what the fail-safe mechanism we put there? Where should we have the human in the loop, right? Now, all of those things is good theoretical discussion, but when it comes on the practical grounds, I think it depends. Like if the organization already have the RPA tools, because the tools are also maturing and evolving.
Very true.
So those traditional tools, if they are going agentic, I think that's probably the first step for them. If organization is looking new RPA tools, probably they should wait and or pick a tool which is ground up from the agents in in like agentic nature as a fundamental core concept. If organization is at the stage where they can actually afford to go on a platform, like where they build the platform where they basically have a vision, they have early success with these tools, or even the tools like Bala was suggesting, like there are some of the organizations came up and where they're solving one problem at a time.
Yeah.
The problem with that one is like it might give you early success, but it's very difficult. It will create more technical debt.
Very true.
So it could be a stepping stone so that it creates the excitement in the business, understand that, okay, what is the possibility? And if that's the stage someone is, it makes sense to do that. But I think if the organization is looking a future, because these things are changing at the pace and the speed, which what we are talking today, within the 6 months or 1 year, that will feel like, okay, we are like a legacy.
Very true.
So that's the reason I think one thing any organization or any engineering side should fully adopt that whatever we are doing today needs to change tomorrow, and that tomorrow is not 10 years down the line. So if we keep that in mind, that okay, we need to change it. So whatever we are doing is we are ready to change it, and that change will not be as costly as you used to be. And that's one of the reasons we were talking yesterday that it might be difficult for the big organization to basically compete with each other only.
Yeah.
Tomorrow there will be one small organization or one small guy sitting in a coffee table can build something which is can compete with a big organization with a
Very
lot of. So we have to keep that in mindset, right? So when the organization think that okay, we cannot change because we have a lot of human resources to train, retrain, upscale, all of those things need to be reimagined.
Very true.
Right. So that's my kind of point of view. Like, what do you guys think before we wrap up?
No, absolutely. I think, again, I think, when I, as a person, when I go and talk to my customer, I need to also understand the philosophy, but also need to understand what is practical, right?
Yeah.
And I think all of us do, right? There is strict budget, there is strict timeline. When you go and start implementing solution, there is a lot of focus on accuracy. Again, we understand the non-determinism, the probabilistic nature of these models and solution. But again, when it comes to business adoption, they want certain amount of accuracy and confidence, right? So which means a lot of time, like you said, it is possible to start slow, start with some of the tools that you have, because these tools are blurring the lines, right? So if you already have invested in a tool, or if you think that a particular tool is going to help you immediately, it's fine to start with that, but never lose the bigger vision, because a tool is not an answer, right? A tool is a mechanism to solve a use case. The answer is what is your adoption strategy? And your adoption strategy has to be based on a solid fundamental platform, right? So think platform, do not think tools. That's my point of view. Bala, parting thoughts?
Yes, both of you are spot on. I mean, there is change management is the biggest thing and the culture, right? We have to change, and the pace of change is super fast. and depending on the persona of who that is, the change could be different way. Like if it is a non software engineering type user, they could be very interested in tools. If it is a like a software engineer or a coder type user, then you give a platform and it's easy for them to build it because they have the fundamental knowledge behind it, right? So you have to look at it in different ways and see how to change the culture of like instead of doing deterministic code, change it to a non-deterministic code. And Navneet, you said right, like the humans make mistakes too, right? I mean, but I think going for perfection is the biggest problem that I've seen.
Correct.
This is not just for the software industry. I've seen it in the other industries as well. People go for perfection too much, and then they can't change. They are stuck with it.
Yep. No, well said. Well said.
Yeah.
So, by the way, now this topic actually, Bala, it came from yesterday. We had our first session, first podcast. A lot of people reached out to us. They talked about, hey, can we do another session around RPA? So we brought up this topic today. So again, on to all our viewers, keep on sending us messages. Keep on sending us what kind of topics you want us to talk about. In this panel, again, we have a lot of industry experience, so we can bring you what we are seeing in the ground. But more importantly, all three of us promise that we're also going to bring in guest speakers from
Yep.
very affiliated parts of industries, and we can hear it from them as well, right?
Yep.
Yep.
So yeah, I mean, again, thank you so much for all the viewers for listening to us, and hopefully this is good education, right?
Yep. Thank
Awesome.
you.
Thank you all. Have a great one.